If we're going to follow Jesus, well, then where did his footsteps regularly lead?
This is something Paul Washer said. If you want to know if you're on the narrow way, you don't look back from where you are to 35 years ago. Look down at your feet.
I had somebody ask me a question once. Josh, if you set an appointment with God, can he trust you to show up?
Quality time means quantity time, but we also have to realize what God can do with the time, even a little bit of time.
If we're following the footsteps of Jesus and our feet are not regularly, consistently going among lost and hurting and broken people, are we really following his footsteps? Here we are, Jason Ishmael, Josh Howard.
The podcast of disciple makers.
The podcast.
One disciple maker and another guy.
Whatever. The maker of Disciples podcast.
A disciple maker and a megachurch pastor. Is that how you want me to frame it? Is that
I do, yeah.
All right, there you go.
I'm messing with you. No. Well, welcome back, guys. Great to have you all back with us. This may end up being a two-parter. We'll see. Not sure how long this will go, and we promise not to make this too excessively long. So if we need to break this up into 2 episodes, we will. But let me kind of set the stage a little bit. What we're going to be talking about in this episode is a few years ago, my team and I in South Asia, because people throw around the term a lot like I'm a follower of Jesus or I follow Jesus. And so, but the question is, are we really? I think that's the big question. And so we begin to scour the Gospels, basically asking the question, if we're going to follow Jesus, well, then where did his footsteps regularly lead? Right? Good question, I think.
I think it's an inappropriate question.
I think it's a perfect question.
Following is not optional, so.
Right, yeah. And when Jesus gives the invitation to come and follow me, well, then where did his feet go, right? Because I think so often, I know for me, in seasons of my life, man, I know you've never been like this.
Oh, boy.
But for me, I know that I say with my lips that I follow Jesus, but it may not always be his footsteps that I'm actually following. And there are times when I look up and realize where I'm going, there are times I'm following other footsteps. Maybe it's great Christian leaders, which is great. Maybe it's other people. Maybe it's other things. But sometimes it's not where Jesus's feet may go. And so anyway, all that to say, although there's a lot of places his feet go, we really found 4 consistent areas that he consistently went. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, guys, in order to really help us to consider, are we really following Jesus well? Because part of being a disciple who makes disciples is following Jesus and helping other people follow Jesus. And so we wanted to find that a little bit and look at where his feet went. Thoughts?
There we go. I like it.
Hey,
I like it.
You like it.
Following. It's not optional. It's yes. It's essential. And if you want to know if you're following, you don't need to look back. This is something Paul Washer said. If you want to know if you're on the narrow way, you don't look back from where you are to 35 years ago. Look down at your feet.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm walking with him today.
That's good, bro.
So let's follow wherever that may be.
Come on, somebody.
All right.
That's good.
So what is it? Are you going to give us the 4 and then we're going to get into it?
No, actually, I thought we'd just kind of leave them on a hanger.
You're going to tease it
out?
Yeah. Okay.
This will be actually 5 episodes from now. We're going to be talking about the 4. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, let's talk about that. Number 1, are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
I mean, you better get ready.
Please tell me.
This is not obvious. It is, actually. Some of these are going to be like, duh, of course.
That's really the beauty of discipleship, though, honestly. Like, there's so many times where it's been like, oh, so it is like praying and reading the Bible? That's like a core tenets of
right.
What this is. It's like,
you mean talking about Jesus to people who don't know him? Okay. Yeah.
I thought it had to be so much more complicated and academic and,
right.
difficult for me to understand.
Right. Hey, are you going to let me talk about these 4 things? Or?
No, I was going to say another story. Now, go ahead.
So number 1, okay, and again, some of these are obvious, but number 1, we found Jesus's feet regularly leading to quiet places alone with the Father. All the time. As a matter of fact, he even said at one point, I literally said, I only do what I see the Father doing. And so he's spending so much time with the Father and getting even insight and advice from him on the day ahead or the week ahead that he is literally living his life out of the overflow of his time alone with the Father. And I don't know about you, man, but when I look down at my feet, especially during busy, chaotic seasons, they are rarely leading to quiet places alone with me and the Father one-on-one to spend time. But Jesus consistently, man, over and over again, he'd get up before it was even light outside to go spend time alone with his Father.
Yeah.
And even the disciples would have to come get him sometimes. Jesus, the crowds are looking for you. Where were you? I had to get away. I had to get away to be with my Father, right? Or the disciples say, hey, you want us to grab you some food, Jesus? We're going to Chick-fil-A, which, by the way, we are right after this episode. We're not going there, but we are getting Chick-fil-A.
It's going to be awesome.
Anyway, you want us to get you some food, Jesus? And he's like, I've got food that you don't know about. And he wasn't talking about a biscuit in his pocket.
Maybe somebody brought him some food. Does he have another arrangement? What's going on?
Yeah.
All the little buzz around the disciples. They're all constantly looking the wrong direction.
Yeah, and he's talking about the spiritual food that he's getting from his dad.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think we've got to ask ourselves, if we say that we're followers of Christ, are our feet regularly leading to quiet places alone with the Father?
Yeah. I wonder how many nights Jesus stayed up all night.
Yeah.
With the Lord. I wonder how often that happened.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely know before the cross he did.
Yep.
We definitely know before he picked his disciples he did. And it who knows how many other times throughout his ministry where there was a big day ahead, he spent amazing, abundant amounts of time alone with the Father, getting his heart. And we're talking about Jesus here, okay? So if Jesus needed to get away alone with the Father and hear his voice, how much more do you and I need to do that, man?
Yeah. Yeah. It's that good.
Yeah.
It's that good. Again, I have a tendency, and I have to be careful here, because I hear you say this, and I don't know if anybody else shares this kind of this thinking. We just have this, sort of the guilt complex of faith, or the obligation context of faith. Like, well, if Jesus spent a lot of time with the Father, I guess. I guess I have to as well. If that's what's the right thing to do. Being with the Father is that good. It's that good. Yeah. You hear things like John of the Cross, guys like John of the Cross, who describes the dark night of the soul. And I remember hearing that, thinking like, oh, that must just be like a really rough time that he's going through. It's when it happens when things are really rough. No, like that's not the perspective. Actually, it's I was with the Lord so distinctly and intimately that everything else that is not exactly right next to him with him, it's so good to be with him that everything else is like pure darkness.
Yeah.
And I go, oh,
that's different.
Oh, so your scale is maybe a little different than mine.
A little different.
Your intimacy with the Lord might scale a little higher than mine does.
Yeah.
I might not know that quite the way you want it, that you know it, but man, I want it.
Or Brother Lawrence, who wrote the book Practicing the Presence.
Yep.
He literally, there were stories about him when he got to a point where he basically, from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to bed, he intentionally set his mind and heart on being in the presence of God no matter what he was doing, whether it was washing dishes or baking bread or whatever. And he got to such a point where he consistently did that there were stories about him that people would come and visit him at the monastery that he was at, and his face would literally be glowing, like that they could see the presence of God reflecting off of him. That is an intimacy, man, that's different. And I think that's why people loved being around Jesus so much. There was an overflow that he was living in that was unprecedented. There was an overflow that he was living in that just drew people to him. And it was so important to him that he would sacrifice sleep, sacrifice time, sacrifice energy in order to be alone with the Father. It reminds me of that Shane and Shane song. I can't remember the name of it, so you'll just have to try to look it up, Google it. But they have a line in the song where they say, if your presence stays, I don't want to go. But if your presence leaves, I don't want to stay. Like, I'm getting emotional thinking about that. I'm here in this room alone with you, Father, and as long as your presence is here, I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But the moment it's gone, I don't need to be here anymore. Like, I don't want to stay if you're not here. but if you are, I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And that intimacy level, man, I've been in moments where I look back on them, a moment of deep prayer and intimacy with Jesus, where I have to leave to go do something that's already planned. And it is like I have to force myself to get up and leave. I don't want to. And I know I'm going to immediately be walking out of a really special time, and you have to. And then there's times where you pray and there's no feeling at all. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But you're doing it because you want to intentionally spend time with him, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's true in any relationship, isn't it? I mean, do you always have incredible conversations with your kids? No. There are times we're in the car and we don't talk about anything.
Your mileage will vary, right?
And then there are times, man, there's that special conversation that's just, that was rich, you know?
Yeah,
but
there's
it's about
something
consistency.
Exactly. This is the key, though. I think sometimes we crave those seminal moments, the ones that we could tell a story about. Not realizing, of course, that surrounding those seminal moments, we would call those the quality times. There was somebody years ago, I can't even remember who said this to me, was talking about what quality time really is. And he said quality time means quantity time. And I think about even as a father or as a friend or as a spouse, if I said to you, man, my wife Brittany and I, we've had such a great season. I've had such quality time with her. This past week, man, we had 10 minutes of just incredible quality time. Just absolutely phenomenal quality time with Brittany. The funny thing is that, I think for a lot of us, given the demands of time and the scarcity of time, that it does feel like that. If we could just squeak out 10 minutes, I think that's a pretty convicting admission, though.
Yeah.
When I look at the economy of time spent in my life, where am I spending quantity time?
Yep.
Because quantity time is quality time. I can linger for a while.
That's good. That honestly, like that, I've never heard anybody say that, and it's so true, because you don't get to the quality moments without quantity. You don't sit down after not being, for example, with your spouse for weeks at a time and sit down and you're with her for 15 minutes and it's the greatest quality time you've ever had.
Yep.
That's not the case.
Yep.
It's consistent times alone or consistent times with groups of people that then there are times that those quality moments happen, but they only happen when you're consistently spending time together. So I can't tell you how many hundreds of car rides I've had with my kids, and there are quality moments that happen that I can look back on, and I cherish those moments. But those would not have happened if I had one car ride with them.
Right.
It happens when you get comfortable together. It happens when you're spending time. And so I want you guys to think about this as you're listening. What does your quality time with God look like? And the only way to get there, like Jason is saying, is with quantity. Are we consistently spending time alone with the Father? And is that leading to those really special, precious moments with Him that are of incredible quality? I've read stories, man, of some of the saints of old where they would say when they started consistently doing something with the Father, one of them, I can't remember who it was. I remember reading a story that he was sharing about his consistent time. And he decided for a season that every day at a certain time, I forget what it was going to be in the same chair, same room, every day, 6 a.m., and he's going to go there. And he said after doing it for weeks, it got to a point where he said there would be days that he'd walk in the room and without saying a word, he'd feel the presence of God waiting on him there.
Come on. Yeah.
And he'd sit down and literally would not even say a word and just enjoy the presence of God without verbally praying anything.
Yeah.
But it didn't start that way. It took weeks of consistently sitting there and praying. And sometimes I wonder, I had somebody ask me a question once, Josh, if you set an appointment with God, can He trust you to show up?
Maybe.
Right?
Yep.
Dude, if you and I had a lunch planned, if you and I are going to meet at 12 and I don't show up and I don't call, I don't let you know, You're like, well, we know each other well enough. Something must have happened. But if I do that tomorrow and then I do that next week and I do it again in a month, you're going to quit having lunch with me. Like, or you're going to be like, I'm going to come pick you up. We're going to be in the car together. But the question is, can God count on us to show up when we set an appointment with him? And so often, dude, we don't view our appointments with God as like, man, that is on my schedule. Yeah. Dude, if I have a Zoom call, bro, unless something big happens, and sometimes it does, sometimes somebody gets sick or something, like one time a car broke down, like I get it, and I call the person, hey, I'm so sorry I can't make it. But dude, I'm there within a minute of that call starting most of the time. Sometimes I'm a little late, but you get what I'm saying. Yep. We keep it consistent because there's somebody depending on us to be there. Yep. And we just don't treat God with that.
Man, defend that time. It's so funny because I think about, I've walked through some lessons in other areas of my life and other relationships in my life. For anybody that follows Jesus, Jesus is first, 100%. If you're a spouse, your marriage is second, a distant second at that, and your kids after that. And so I three very clear highest priorities. I'm a pastor, so that actually comes after my children. And sometimes...
Wait a minute. What'd you just say?
Well, this is pretty clear stuff, right?
Chewy, erase that. Erase what,
we're gonna have to,
erase what was just said. Yeah.
What did Paul say to Timothy? If you can't lead at home, don't try to lead at the church. It's got to happen at home first.
That's good, bro.
And
that's good.
We'll end up having conversations around discipleship in the family at some point as well. But I think about times in my life, my occupation oftentimes tends to dominate weird times.
Yeah.
It isn't just confined to 9 to 5. There are lots of evening demands. And I remember in my first summer as a pastor, we had 56 nights in a row where there was an evening obligation for church in some way or form. We had just planted a new ministry, and we were essentially meeting with families all the time. We were trying to get stuff going all the time. There were small groups and different obligations, all these things, 56 nights in a row. And I consistently put ministry, the mission, ahead of my wife in that season. At that time, I should have had somebody in my life that took me aside and said, Jason, what is wrong with you?
How'd that go, by the way?
I'm going to tell you right now, I am very blessed to be married to an incredibly gracious person.
Yeah.
We were super young. I was 22 and she was 20. And she and I grew together in that season. And I don't remember anger from her. But the result of this, however, that over the next several years, we had to sift through what oftentimes was a feeling of competition between what I do for a living and her. And so one of the things that helped me in this, and this is all going to apply to our connection with the Lord, our relationship, our time with the Lord, I had to specifically guard times with her.
Yep.
And that literally might have been that the two of us are going to have dinner at home and we're just going to spend time with each other.
Yep.
That I would have to say, if somebody says, hey, I could use you on Tuesday night, before I would say, well, I don't have anything going on. It's just, I'm just home with my wife.
Yep.
The stakes escalated when we started having kids.
Yep.
And I found myself finally disciplined enough to be able to say to someone, actually, I've got plans.
I've got plans. Yeah,
I have somewhere that I need to be,
or a commitment. I've got a previous commitment.
I have a commitment. That's a great way of putting it, by the way.
Yep.
If that's any indication of our time with the Lord, to be able to defend time with Him and say, this is
that's good, man.
Important time that I reserved for Him, and nothing else is going to get it.
It reminds me of Spurgeon. There's a beautiful story about him. Okay, one of the somebody came to his house one day when he was spending time alone with the Lord. Okay. And knocked on his door. You can imagine where this is going. Okay, Spurgeon is a fireball. All right. This guy comes.
That's an understatement.
The servant comes to the door, okay? Like one of his, maybe it was a housemaid or something like that, comes to the door and greets the guy, and he's in a flurry. I've got to see Mr. Spurgeon right now, Okay. So she goes and says that so-and-so's here, and he says that he can't meet because he's spending time with the Lord. The lady comes and tells him, and he says, "You tell Mr. Spurgeon, a servant of the Most High God is here to meet with him." Okay. She goes, he sends the lady back to the guy and says, "I'm dealing with the master right now. I don't have time for servants."
What? Oh, come on.
I'm dealing with the master. I don't have time for servants.
Well, that's the line you go to.
But can you imagine just the audacity, but the dedication to protecting that time? Spurgeon knew he had a commitment to the Father from this time to this time, and he would not be interrupted. And it didn't matter who it was or what was going on. He had a previous commitment with the king, with the master, and he didn't have time to deal with his servants. and so I love that story. Now, would we ever have the boldness or audacity to say that? No. But
say that to your mother when she's calling.
Who is my mother? Who are my brothers? But anyway, but it just shows he had a deep, consistent dedication. So again, we're going back to the footsteps of Jesus here. If we're following the footsteps of Jesus, he's consistently going to quiet places alone with the Father.
Yeah.
We see guys like Spurgeon consistently guarding those times.
Yep.
Like you said with the illustration of your wife, guarding those times. In the same way, are we willing to guard times with the Father? And honestly, in a moment of confession here, I am horrible at that, man.
Yeah.
Like if something else pops up,
God's flexible.
God's flexible. I'll move it. It's
He's
no
got
big
the
deal.
time.
Yeah, he's got all the time in the world.
Yeah, we'll meet with you later. We can reschedule. No problem.
We got this guy. Yeah, I'll catch you later. You know, you're with me. You're in me. So you're gonna go with me. You know, but anyway, it's the first thing to go. Yeah. It really is, and it's the first thing to change.
Yeah.
Like if I've got a time set aside on the calendar for that, and something else pops up, it immediately, I just shift it or move it. I would never do that to you. I'd never do that to a pastor I'm meeting with for lunch. I'd never treat them that you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But we do that with him all the time. Yep. And so anyway, for the sake of time, let's
guard it. Well, you should hear this. One more piece here, because I think there's something to... So we say...
Are you saying I should hear that? Are you preaching
Oh, this
to me
is
right
important
now?
for you to hear.
Okay.
Yeah, very important for you personally.
Okay, thank you. I'm listening. I'm leaning in.
Quality time means quantity time, but we also have to realize what God can do with the time.
Yes,
even a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So I remember I had a friend. His name was John Hughes. We'd known each other for years. Moved to another spot. He was at that church as well. We got to work together. And he had this training class. He was doing some kind of small group training. It was really in the discipleship structure of the church. And he said, "Hey, I need you to fill in for," it was 2 or 3 weeks. I was like, "Great, no problem." He said, "Now we start every class though with just straight up quiet with
Wait,
the
this
Lord."
this was a discipleship class that was connected to Discipleship.org?
I don't think it was connected to
Because if it wasn't, then it wasn't discipleship.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
that was a joke, guys. Do not quote me. That was a joke. All right. Anyway.
There is only one discipleship.
We have the website for it. Okay. Anyway, so no, go ahead.
So discipleship registered trademark
right.
class was happening. Just a little R right next to discipleship. The Lord help us, right?
I know, right? Sorry, go ahead.
This is where we start the class off. Where we start in total quiet contemplation, just total quiet with the Lord. And my first thought is, there's no way that. That's really good. I was not really into quiet. I'd have time with the Lord, and man, we are going to do a lot of.
We're not quiet people.
I'm going to do a lot of talking. I'm going to pray a lot. I'm going to repeat myself a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to read the Word.
You ever on the phone and your wife's like, "Why do you talk so loud when you're on the phone?"
Man, my voice is worn out from the phone calls. I don't know why. Maybe that's because you're yelling the whole time into the phone. And so I had never embraced just sitting and just resting in the presence of the Lord. And that particular day, I went in and It had been a full day, and I think we had like a 7 o'clock class. And at that point, I think I'd already been hustling for about 11 or 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I was tired, and I had like a severe headache. I don't get headaches often, and I'm a real baby about it when I do. And it's so here I am getting ready to lead this class, and my head is absolutely throbbing. And I was not wise enough to even take an ibuprofen. I'm just going to power through this. And we sit there for, I think it was literally 4 minutes, like maybe even 3. And it was not a lot of time. They were still early in their semester. They were building up. Eventually they would do more, but they started slow. It was 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So here we are, maybe 4 minutes of just literally sitting quiet. And of course you do all the things like, okay, here, oh, there's the air conditioner. Oh, there's the little, that's a fly. Can I focus for a second? And you're just doing all of this to try to just focus and just try to stop. And I finally get there. And I'm just emptied out for a second. Just, okay, Lord, this is your time. Do whatever you want. And I had been doing a lot that day. I tried to cram in as much as I could into 12 hours. And what was so crazy is that we get done, the clock. Okay, guys, here, let's get back. Let's start this thing. It's crazy. My headache just disappeared in that 4 minutes. And I'll tell you right now, the Lord did more with that 4 minutes than I had done with 12 waking hours.
Yeah.
He can do a lot.
Yeah,
with a little. He can do a lot. Now, quality time is quantity time, but don't forget that he can do more in a minute than we could all day long.
5 loaves and 2 fish.
That's right.
Yep. Dude, that's good. That's awesome.
I knew you needed to hear that.
I did need it. That was for me. Okay. So you could just skip past that part.
I'm bad at it, though. I'm not good at this.
I know, me neither, bro.
It is not a good discipline.
I honestly don't like being quiet either. It's hard for me. As a matter of fact, as an extrovert, I'm just real talk. I have trouble sitting alone, period. Like because I'm such an extrovert, I've longed so much, dude, to just have Jesus sitting here like you are with me and just to be able to hang out with him. And I really have to push myself to sit down and pray and to really get in the zone where I'm having a real encounter with Jesus. It's really hard for me as an extrovert just because I think introverts sometimes have a little bit, at times, easier time to be able to sit in the quiet by themselves because they get filled that way. And for me, it honestly is an ongoing struggle. And so that's really helpful, bro.
Man, that's something we ought to talk about at some point. Introverts and discipleship, if I'm being honest, I think are the key. To movements in America. We've built ministry in America around charismatic extroverts. And fantastic that there are parts of the body of Christ that are big personalities, that are magnets, that they can move a lot of people. But oftentimes those people mean a little to a lot of people. Introverts oftentimes have consolidated relational investments. They don't need 5,000 friends. They want to mean a lot to a few people. And that sounds a lot actually like what Jesus did.
Yeah, that's good, bro.
And I really think, man, if you're an introvert and you're hearing this, first of all, thank the Lord that there's some of this stuff that is natural to you, but don't for a second think that because of the way that you're wired, that you're somehow not going to be as productive in the kingdom. This is the most important stuff.
That's good, bro.
And for you to say, well, the most important stuff kind of comes naturally to me, actually.
That could be a whole episode, actually. So for this one, let's get to the second place that we see Jesus'
the second one, all right.
feet going.
That was a pretty good first one.
It was a really good first one. We're already basically
Walk
done
to
with
the quiet
the episode.
places.
Yeah. Walk to quiet places consistently. Quantity is quality. Quality is quantity. One of those.
Blur the lines between those two words. You gave it the Tim the Toolman Taylor version.
So, second place, though, as we begin to study the Gospels, that Jesus' feet regularly went consistently, right, was among the lost and the broken. Intentionally. Okay? And so the question is, if we're following the footsteps of Jesus and our feet are not regularly, consistently going among lost and hurting and broken people who are far from God, are we really following his footsteps? And here's the kicker for me, man. This is what gets me every time. Lost people or broken people or hurting people loved being around Jesus.
Yeah.
Like there was something about him, man, that he was getting invited to parties. They loved having him around. They wanted him at their house. It didn't matter that he was a rabbi and religious leader. They didn't feel like they weren't inviting Pharisees over to the house. You know what I mean? But they were inviting Jesus. They loved being around him, man. And I don't know about you. I mean, even as a Christian leader, there are Christians, dude, I don't ever want to hang out with. We could maybe have a phone call.
Maybe.
I don't want to go out to eat because it would be the most boring meal I've ever had, you know? And so, should have said that out loud. But my point is people love being around him.
Yeah.
Lost people loved being around him. And he was so loving and gracious that even people in tremendous sinful patterns still loved being around him. Yeah. Although he was filled, like we talked about in a different episode, full of grace and truth, both, there was something about him, man, that they loved being around him. And so I think we've got to ask the question, if we're following Jesus, are we regularly around tables? Are we regularly having people in our house? Are we regularly going to other people's homes that are in lost, broken, hurting situations? And are we bringing hope into those environments? Because if we're following his footsteps, man, you read through the Gospels, you can't even get a few lines without seeing him around some more lost, hurting, broken people.
Yeah.
He's around them all the time
and
with them all the time. And it was as he was going that he was encountering lost and hurting people and always had time to turn away from what he was doing to address them and show them that they're important, show them they're loved, show them they're valuable, right? I mean, he's walking down the street. Bro, I know you and me, okay? Let's say we're visiting a city and we know a big-time leader or pastor in that city, okay? We're calling that guy, if we know him, to see if he can have lunch or coffee or breakfast or whatever, if he can give me 5 minutes of his time to spend time with him. Jesus is in Jericho. He's not calling the religious leaders. He's on the street, calls down Zacchaeus, the tax collector, and says, hey, bro, I want to come to eat at your house. We're not doing that, okay? Like, really, we're not living that way practically most of the time. And so we've got to begin to ask ourselves, are our feet going into those places?
Yeah. It's crazy, right? Because the idea of quiet time with the Lord isn't separate from this.
It's not at all.
These things
it leads
are
to it.
Connected together. You think about Isaiah 6, it's one of the most remarkable exchanges that we see in all of the scriptures. Woe is me, I'm a man of unclean lips. I come from a people of unclean lips. My eyes have seen the King. Isaiah is sure at that point that he's dead.
Oh, yeah.
It's
gone.
over.
Yep.
I should not be here. I should not be in the presence of God. I should not be in the throne room of God.
Yep.
And then, the seraph comes, touches a coal to his lips, a live coal, which the seraph, which means burning one, by the way, grabs with tongs, which I've always thought this is kind of interesting that the burning one grabs the coal with tongs. I mean, it must be really hot. Touches it to his lips, says your guilt is atoned for. And now you can be here. Now, I would expect that once I've been welcomed into the presence of God and I have been sanctified to get to be there. I'm now like, wow, I belong. Like I'm a son in the Father's house. I would go, all right, great. Let's get cozy.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay a while. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send and who will go for us?
Yeah.
What? Hold on a second. I just got here. I thought I was going to stay for a while. No, like his intimacy with the Lord, his closeness with the Lord informs his sentness.
Yeah.
His sending from that place. Here am I, send me.
Yep.
Man, I love you preach that text so beautifully. My yes is already on the table. What a great look at the Hebrew of that text. But it's remarkable because he says, man, I'm close. Now I'm going to be sent. I'm close. I'm immediately going to be sent. And the irony, of course, in all of that is God says, oh, by the way, Isaiah, nobody's going to listen to you. Oh,
thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So how long do I talk?
Yeah, right.
He says, till there's nothing left.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that's a remarkable chapter. What we experience in Jesus is better.
Yeah.
It's better.
It's so much better.
It is a better promise than what Isaiah received. Here we are being sent by Jesus, and he tells us, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age.
Yep.
Here we are being sent by Jesus, knowing that we bring the best promises that have ever been communicated. Man, I want to know the Lord. Jesus said to know him is eternal life.
Yep.
I want to know him so well that eternal life flows out of me like a river. Yep. And when I am sent, I'm not just collecting blessings from the Father,
yep.
that I'm allowing them to be like a river that flows from me.
Beautiful,
We've got to be, if I want to be close to him,
yep.
I can't help but be sent by him.
Amen, man. That's so good. And that you're right, they're so connected, because Jesus was not only going and just singing Kumbaya with the Father, he was actually talking to him about his day, at what he needed to spend his time and energy on. He really wanted to be on focus and on mission every single step that he was taking. And so he was literally asking the Father's advice and input and guidance over every day that he was living. And then that's how he was able to live that life of overflow. So it goes from the quiet places alone with the Father directly out of that into the mission fields of going among lost, hurting, broken people and bringing hope and grace and mercy to them in those broken moments, right? And so, and here's the sad truth, man. Most people in professional ministry, right? Like those of us that call ourselves, professional ministers, most of us are rarely around lost people. We have very few friends that are far from God. Most of our friends are close to Jesus. And we're rarely intentionally going to places where we know lost and broken people are with the intention of being a witness in those places. Yeah. Like, I wonder what it would be like, right? If we every day woke up, spent our quiet time with the Father with a laser-focused intention that the moment we leave that quiet place, we are on mission all day long. No matter where we go and what we do, our intention is to witness, be a witness for Christ and an ambassador for his kingdom. What would a life like that look like, man? Yeah. Because I don't know about you. I mean, I went to Starbucks this morning, and I brought you a coffee.
You did. I appreciate that very, very much.
I did not intentionally go to Starbucks to be a witness. That's not why I went there. I went there because I wanted a grande caramel macchiato with 5 pumps of vanilla. That's what
like
I wanted.
Teenage girl
By the way,
drink.
Starbucks, whatever.
No offense to teenage girls.
He did get a. He called me this morning. He was like, "Make sure you get me the lightest blend that they have."
I never said make sure. I demand.
I demand. He didn't say that, but he did say the lightest blend. You did say
No,
that.
I said lightest roast.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Lightest roast. See?
Just want a black coffee, lightest roast.
Lightest roast. You're right. Anyway, but I didn't go there with the intention of being a witness. I went there for that reason. I didn't go to Walmart last week because I wanted to be first and foremost a witness. I went there because my family needed some toilet paper.
You went there to get something.
Yeah, I went there to get something, not to be something or to do something.
Or to give something.
Good. Yeah, I went there to get something, not to give something. And what would it be like if we just slightly, it doesn't mean we necessarily have to go in completely different areas. Sometimes it will.
If the Lord calls you.
Yes, there will be times we go to neighborhoods we never go to. There will be times we go to people we would never be around, 100%. But the intentionality of our daily walk can radically change if we went from a quiet place with the Father directly on mission as we were going throughout life, being a witness and an ambassador.
Yep.
That would change everything, man.
Yep.
Could you imagine thousands of people living like that every day?
Yep.
It would change everything. And then we would need to make sure we've got time, energy, and bandwidth and a little bit of margin that if we encountered somebody at a Starbucks, see, that's the problem with me, bro. I have like this much margin in my day period. Everything's back to back to back to back to back. Even if I met somebody at Starbucks, I mean, hey, bless you. Let me say a 5-second prayer with you. You know what I mean? I would have had to get a phone number and follow up, which would have been great, but I didn't go there for that reason, right? And so I think intentionality is the key.
Yeah. This is not a new idea, by the way.
What?
When Jesus gave the Great Commission with all authority in heaven and earth to go and make disciples is how we often translate it. That word go, if we were to very literally translate that word, indicates ongoing action.
As you are going.
As you are going. So there is never a time. Imagine this. I'm planning a missions trip to somewhere overseas. When does it start? When does the mission start? Well, I hope now.
Right.
As you are going. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not on the clock yet, Lord. I'm not going to do anything with that.
That's good, man.
As you are going. Then what happens is you start to reorient your entire life around being on mission. So I've got my intimate time with the Father. It overflows into everything else. And now everything that I do and everything that I am really just becomes an excuse to make connections for the kingdom of God.
That's good, bro. David Platt has a sermon that he preached called "Your Life is a Mission Trip." Like that's what it was, because he noticed the difference that you're talking about. If we go on a mission trip to some other country, some other place, the intentionality and the focus that we have while we're on that trip, he basically is saying, why don't we live that way all the time, right? Which is so true. Like there's so many times you go to, an inner city mission for a day or something, or you do a homeless ministry one time, or you're at a soup kitchen. And the love and the intentionality and the prayers and the talking about Jesus is just naturally overflowing because in your mind, you're on a mission trip. So that's what you're there to do. And then you go home and you do whatever the heck you want the rest of the time. And his point was, your life is the mission trip. Every day as you are going, what if you lived with that intentionality that you would in Kenya or Africa somewhere or Mexico or India? What if you lived with that intentionality every day? Dude, we need people like that, right? And so if you're listening right now, I know like we're almost out of time here. And so if you're listening right now, think about these two things. This is only part one. We've got two more places Jesus's feet consistently go and point to that we're going to talk about next episode. But in this episode at the end, guys, I want you to be thinking about these things. Are your feet regularly going to quiet places alone with the Father? And then is that overflowing to your feet regularly and intentionally going to places with people who are far from God, who are hurting, and who are in broken situations? Is your life the mission trip? Is your life the thing that you're going to be focusing on? And is Jesus's mission your main priority when it comes to intentionality, right? And so, as we close up here, I just want you to be really thinking and contemplating and praying about guarding that time with the Lord like we talked about, not rescheduling on him all the time. But then as you leave that place, as Isaiah did, you have that intimacy, you have that overflow. Now let's live lives of intentionality as disciples who are called by God as we are going to make disciples as we go. Amen?
Amen, man.
Sweet. Guys, check us out at Discipleship.org. We have a lot of free resources and ways that we'd love to help you. Please like, comment, subscribe, send us some messages. We'd love, if you've got questions, we'd love to answer them. If there's a way we can help you guys live this out, please reach out to us. We want to come alongside of you, and we want to help you be the best disciple who can go make disciples as possible. Reach out to us. Jason and I would be glad to help in any way we can. We love you guys, and we can't wait to see you next time.